Okay, so obviously it has been an interesting week in Titans football, to say the least. And honestly, I was meant to record this episode on a Monday, which is probably for the better that I didn't. Not because of the fact that I am feeling like that, I'm starting to lose the grind or anything. No, but I feel like it's a better thing because there are a lot more stories that actually came from Tuesday than there were for the rest of the week. And there were some things that I saw that I found personally interesting. And I'm very excited to get into those things. So, anyway, what's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Titans Rundown. I am your host, Micah McCamey. And man, this has obviously we have the OTAs coming up and all that stuff. There was a storyline that came out recently about the potential leadership for one of our star players, which obviously I will get to in a second. And there's just been a lot of stuff going on within the Titans culture with that specifically that I'm actually interested to cover. It was something that personally made me upset, but actually, now that I think about it, it's not really that big right now, but I'm hoping that it gets out so that way people are willing to actually call, well, the dude that is not doing this out. But anyway, let's get started. First off, I want to start out by beginning this episode, not talking about anything on my notes, but I want to talk about a post that came out from a Nashville insider. And according to this man, apparently what we've heard in training camp is that the offense has actually kind of dominated the defense. Now, obviously, it's really early. It's really early. There are no pads on, nothing else like that. That's why we don't really have a clear idea of who linebacker 2 is going to be. Like, there are a lot of things that people are considering and are confused about. And just, overall, most people are looking toward the insiders to see what is going on. So this one insider said that the offense is dominating the defense. So what does that mean? Well, obviously it doesn't mean much, but it does interest me, mostly just because even last year with early reports, the Tennessee Titans defense was absolutely dominating the offense. Like, there wasn't even a fair competition there. Like, Will Levis was getting just crushed, and just overall was a bad experience for the offense in general. Golly, and we still thought that dude was going to be good. I'm not too sure where that came from. But I did want to mention it. Also, while I'm mentioning Will Levis, I think that I should at least say this, that, if you were curious about my opinion, yes, we should ship him off. I mean, my gosh, that dude does not look like he wants to be here. The team doesn't seem like they really want him to be here. Like, let the dude go somewhere else and build up a better career there. He needs a restart. And we also need to get him out of here, because then that makes things so confusing, right? So that's really all I wanted to say. So let's get into today's episode. We're going to start out by talking about two big things from the OTAs that happened this week is on Tuesday, because again, they're the only ones that are open right now until actual training camp starts in a few months from now. So let's start out with talking about Cam Ward's performance. Now, obviously, a lot of people have had some problems with it. It's because of the rough start that he got off to. He started out 1 for 4, really slow start. He had a bad miscommunication with Bryce Oliver. Just overall, a really just bad thing for Cam Ward. But here's the thing. This is a great test for a young quarterback like this. It's whenever he gets off to a slow start like that, whenever he does seem like he's going to have a bad day, how does he respond? We saw how it happened with some of the other people that we knew in the Titans organization, specifically at the quarterback position, where we would see this vibe of like it's last year whenever Will Levis would have a bad day or get off to a slow start, he usually wouldn't bounce back. He would always end up doing more stupid stuff, getting down, not really having the effort, the drive to keep going. Like, just you could tell that that's what was happening. But with Cam Ward, he bounced back pretty well. I mean, he still had some iffy moments, to say the least, but he finished the day pretty decently. I think he was 12 of 22, if I remember correctly. Not terrible. Obviously, could be better. But again, he's young. He's developing. And it's nice to see that he was at least fighting back after the slow start that he got off to. He was nowhere near 1 of 4 for the rest of the practice, if you were curious. But anyway, yeah, that was just something that was really nice to see because, again, like I mentioned, last year there were quarterbacks that got off to slow starts, didn't really recover that well. But Cam Ward is recovering pretty well. And also, I do want to take this time to also talk about some of the great stories that I am hearing about Cam Ward, like about how he wakes up at 5 a.m. or he gets to the practice facility at 5 a.m. in the morning. Like, that is ridiculous. That is the type of mentality that we have needed in a quarterback since goodness knows when. Like, this is something that gets me really excited. And oh no, just hearing the vibe around the building from Cam Ward, according to insiders, according to other people, like, people are really excited about, well, Cam Ward. And I'm getting excited because of that. Like, oh no, there's just a different vibe around Cam Ward than there was with even a Will Levis, if you will. Like, there's just something that just seems right. That's really all I got to say about that. But yeah, Cam Ward, not really the best day, again, with a rookie quarterback. You're going to have some really amazing days that Cam Ward has, and you're going to have some really terrible days that Cam Ward has. But as long as he is showing those flashes of like being willing to bounce back or just, having those really amazing days, then I honestly am completely fine with him having a couple of bad days here and there, as long as he's showing those flashes that are needed for somebody to trust, hey, this guy's our guy, he's going to be our franchise. But anyway, moving on to his other Miami teammate, Xavier Estrepo, he had some interesting storylines this last OTAs. First off, it was the fact that Cam Ward was actually starting to find him and starting to throw him the ball. That is something that we were expecting to happen a little earlier, but now that it is happening, you're starting to see that connection from Miami that he was building up for all that time. All of that stuff the reason that he was probably even brought into the Titans in the first place was because of his connection in college with Cam Ward. So, with that being said, like, again, he's done some good things. Like, he's had some nice highlights, but I felt like that this day was really a big day for him personally, from what they've been reporting about him. And here's the thing: you heard a report after practice. Apparently, he and Ward were getting in extra reps and just trying to make sure that they can get better and better with chemistry and just get better overall, which is something that I really appreciated seeing. Again, another great flash from our young quarterback showing that leadership. And for me, this Tuesday was the best evidence that I think that we've had so far that Xavier Estrepo is very easily going to make this roster. Like, that should have never been a doubt in anybody's mind, but I think that's starting to become more and more obvious as the time goes on. And I'm interested to see what happens with that. But anyway, also, before I get into the last subject, which is something that I really don't like, I would like to talk about specifically offensive tackle Dan Moore. Okay. I don't feel like I've heard that much from Dan Moore. I've heard stuff from Latham. I think I heard a little bit about Skoronsky. Obviously, you're going to hear a decent amount about Kevin Zeitler, especially considering the fact that we're trying to manage him. But what I'm really curious about with Dan Moore is, like, why aren't we hearing anything about him? Has he been just that good to where there's not been a point to talk about him? Or has he been that bad to the point where they don't want to talk about how bad he is because it'll panic Titans fans? It's something that I'm really confused about. And I'm hoping that it's like what it was for Skoronsky in year 2, where nobody was talking about him, not because he was playing terrible, but because he was playing so solid that there was no need to talk about him. And I am interested to see how that ends up being. Again, I actually sent this question in on Jim Wyatt's mailbag, so I'm hoping to get some clarity there. And I'm hoping that he'll at least, respond to it. I'm not even too sure if it's submitted, but I am hoping that I can give you all that information, or for the people that read the Jim Wyatt mailbag, they will be able to see that information, because this is something that I really hope is not true, that we just gave this gargantuan contract to Andre Dillard 2.0. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really hoping that that's not what this is. But even if you look at his sack numbers last year, I just have a hard time actually believing that most of those weren't on the fact that Justin Fields and Russell Wilson are both infamous for the fact that they hold on to the ball too long. Like, that is something that I've been trying to take into consideration. And again, I'm hoping that Dan Moore, that's the reason that he was giving up so many sacks last year, or at least I hope that that's the majority of the reason, and that whenever you take away the sacks that were caused by Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, that it more looks like 5 or 6 sacks. Obviously, that's not worth the money that we're giving him, but that still means that he at least is manageable and serviceable. And honestly, serviceable at left tackle for the Tennessee Titans would be an absolute miracle. Because look, Latham showed flashes last year. He had some very solid moments and some really good games. But we've also got to consider the fact that he also had some really bad moments. It was some of his moments were his low moments were so low to the point where we decided to sign Dan Moore at left tackle and move J.C. Latham back to right tackle. Looking at that now, obviously J.C. Latham is going back to right tackle. We've heard good things about him so far, but I want to hear what's going on with Dan Moore. Okay, now that rant's out of the way, I didn't even have that in my notes. It was just thoughts that I had on him. Also, before we get into this, though, T-Sweat, he finally made his return. T'Vondre Sweat is back at practice and seems as energetic as he usually is, which, honestly, I could not be more happy about. And just overall, I am very interested to see what he does this year. Because I felt like that he had some really, really good moments last year. I mean, I think that most people would agree with me on that statement. Like, it was enough to where some of his biggest haters even apologized for being so derogatory toward him. So anyway, but speaking of T-Sweat, that is actually part of what the last subject is about. We got a report again from another Nashville insider that T-Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons were not working out together in the offseason. Okay, so most people will look at this and think, oh, that's no big deal. T'Vondre Sweat's a good player. Jeffrey Simmons is a good player. So they should be fine, right? But my problem with that is that I feel like that they should use the offseason to build up more and more chemistry as time goes on. What I'm really upset about personally is the fact that this feels like a lack of leadership from Big Jeff, who is supposed to be one of our big leaders and one of our better leaders in general. Like, this is something that, again, just makes me really upset because of those reasons. Like, here's the thing, right? I know that T'Vondre Sweat is somebody that has a notorious record for sometimes not being the hardest worker and sometimes just, not really putting his head down and getting to work. But here's the thing. If you call up T-Sweat and ask him, hey, do you want to go, work out today, work on, some defensive line stuff, or just hit the gym or whatever. Like, if he says no, you have to show some resilience. You got to look at him. You got to drag his tail and kicking and screaming into the gym or to work out. Like, you need a leader that is willing to do that. And quite frankly, if that is the case, that T-Sweat wasn't going to work with Big Jeff because of the fact that he was a little bit lazier, then that makes me upset for both sides, honestly, because, T-Sweat obviously looking lazy, but also the other side of Jeffrey Simmons not being a big enough leader to the point where he's able to push T-Sweat to actually go and get to work. Again, I heard this great quote once. You don't trade out divas so you can get leaders. You bring in leaders so that way you can calm down the divas. That is what the point of a good leader is. And if Jeff isn't doing that, then that makes me upset. But I don't think it's that. I think it's more so of a lack of Jeffrey Simmons just not inviting T'Vondre Sweat, which feels like the person that he should be most focused on inviting to one of these things. T'Vondre Sweat is the dude that literally lines up right beside him every day going to work. And T'Vondre Sweat is only a year 2 player. Even though he's older, he's still a year 2 player who has a long way to go before he ends up being truly elite. So, if you want to look like a good leader, go help him out. Help him become what he can be. And help him actually develop a decent develop even more than he already has. Like, look, I feel like that he's going to be. I think that T'Vondre Sweat is going to be a great D lineman, and I think Big Jeff is a very solid D lineman as well. But I need both of. But I need. But but I need Big Jeff to be helping T'Vondre Sweat develop, so that way, we can see his leadership. It's something that made me upset. I know it's something small to be upset about, but it's something that you need for team bonding and for good leadership. So that's just my thoughts on why the Big Jeff thing is something that I'm actually concerned about. But anyway, that's it for today's episode. Again, these are a little shorter in the off season because there's not that much to talk about in training camp right now. And there's also not that much NFL news in general coming out right now. So so that's why these episodes are a little shorter than usual. I'm going to try and start doing some different stuff during this, what is going to end up being a dead period during the Titans off season. And hopefully I can provide y'all some solid content. But anyway, I have Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok all under the Titans Rundown if y'all want to go check those out. And yeah, that's going to do it all for me. This has been a rundown of your Tennessee Titans. I love y'all. Tighten up.